Welcome back to another fantastic episode of I'm going to talk and you're going to listen. This is the second attempt of me recording this one, and I'll explain why at some point. We'll do some housekeeping really quick, which is one of the things that I skipped last time. The memory in my computer is good now. If any of you know about computer stuff, I essentially unplugged the power to the motherboard and then plugged the power to the motherboard back in, plugged the RAM in, and that somehow cleared out whatever jitter was causing it. Shout out to Gigabyte, hashtag they tried. They were kind of repeating the same things over and over and over again, but in kind of a weird roundabout way. They said, that's not your serial number. Your serial number's on the ATX connector. So I shoved my phone in there and took a picture of the ATX connector, and I could only see I couldn't see the very first character, and I was pretty sure it was SN, for serial number. So I unplugged the ATX, yep, sure enough it said SN. I plugged the ATX connector back in and the RAM worked. So Gigabyte, you just repeated yourself over and over and over and over and over again. But it worked. Now, I have no idea why unseating and reseating the CPU didn't work, but unplugging and replugging the ATX did work, but whatever. I know I may not know how to weld, and I may not know how to repair a car, but hey, computer stuff, hooray. So that's the memory saga. So I'm rocking 64 gigs, which means I can do my AI stuff and have lots of overhead for future AI stuff, so that's cool. PNW Affliction stuff. The art book is well underway. I debuted a beta version of it to my brother yesterday, and he wants me to work on making having a proper design strategy for it, which is a great idea, so I'm going to work on that. He says other than that, he likes the design direction it's going. It's probably still going to be another month or two, because I want it to look really moderately decent. It's not going to look amazing because I don't have a professional art book designer. I just have me, and then all the art that's going into it between me and Jum, but I'll put enough design work into it to make sure at least it looks moderately okay. And there's going to be more exclusive artwork in it, although I don't know how much yet. Between the book covers, what went into print volume 1, and all the art that I did for the Bunker Codes Collector's Edition, there's going to be exclusive art in it on top of that. Now that I have all this memory working super fast, I should be able to do that. So that's where that is. Fanny 2 is still underway. I'd say I'm roughly somewhere between 3 or 4 chapters in. I plan on putting a new chapter up in the bunker tier of the coffee page within the next day or two. So that's cool. I hope a couple people are looking forward to that. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the homework assignment. No, house cleaning. The homestead's doing just fine, except those of you who pay attention to the weather, which is a lot of you, know that we're getting 4 days of torrential downpour. So 0 is getting done out there. It's like 50 degrees and just pouring, and it's crazy windy. So nothing's getting done out there. I'm not even going to try to put any seeds out there for the lulz because it's nasty. Hopefully the plants survive. I was talking to a couple other people that were like talking about not even putting anything in the ground until like mid to late June, which if the growing season goes later, that's just fine. If the growing season doesn't go later, then there might just not be any crops this year for some stuff. So okay, anyway, I think I have kind of memorized the topics I went over in the podcast episode that I decided to not upload. I want to keep trying to dial back the negativity and the doom and gloom, even though I think I do a very good job of not focusing on, Ukraine, Russia, China, North Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Iran. Most people everybody I talk to is sick and tired of hearing about that. So I think I do a really good job not talking about that, but I do talk about the civil unrest in the United States a lot. And right after I got done recording the episode about 2 days ago was when Orange Man just got his 34 felonies. And I didn't really have any strong opinions about it, other than the fact that it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, which I've made apparent in my books for, 6-7 plus years now, that it's completely irrelevant. But what I didn't factor in is that a certain news agency was going to massively pour gas on the fire of trying to FF and Fantastic Freddy, the to use a morphism, conservatives, or I don't even really know who, because the people that they're trying to gaslight don't exist. They're like, dozens of people on the internet were inciting violence, and they quoted like 2 people that probably said some things that they shouldn't have. And so that's why I used to put those disclaimers in my episodes, but people are complaining about the AI disclaimers at the beginning and end. But the only way we make it through this is together. If people are inciting violence or saying you're doing anything crazy, just turn around and walk the other way and get out of there. If you see mobs, if you see rioting, if you see street lockdowns, takedowns, you just slowly, safely back up and just get out of there. Right? You don't engage. You don't go to anything crazy. You don't do anything crazy. You don't stay away from anyone doing anything crazy. And I don't know how many times I've said that and written that on Twitter and YouTube, like YouTube comments, like anyone will listen. I tell them that. And I didn't feel like I emphasized that enough in my podcast. It feels stupid to me that I feel like I should have to say that like 5,000 times every single podcast to try to distance myself from being able to offer commentary on what I think is going to happen. But I feel like I have to. because there was this whole list of like trigger words and domestic conflict, all the different words for domestic conflict were on there. Saying that your vote doesn't matter was on there. Saying that the votes were going to be stolen, or that the election was going to be stolen, and then all of the allegories to the January 6th event. It's insane. Like it was such like a massive inflammatory list that it ended up being like pretty much every single thing that I had talked about on my podcast, except for the fact that I wasn't encouraging any of those things. I'm just simply stating that they're probably going to happen. All of those things are probably going to happen. I don't want them to happen. I want everybody to stay as far away from them as possible. Stay away from people who are encouraging them to happen. However, I deal in reality. And I've seen this shit happen multiple times over now. Like, all these things that happen follow an extremely predictable vibe. That's why I talk about them so much. Because you can practically set a calendar to this crap. And, they go after Orange Man. They go after Alex Jones. People like, Penny are still in jail and haven't been let go. And so many political prisoners haven't been let go. Even before J6, there had been years and years of political prisoners that had been thrown in the gulag and are still in the gulag. And it's still happening. And I was thinking to myself, after seeing that certain news agency post all that stuff, that like, even talking about this, even though I'm saying stay away, mind your own business, just strive to be left alone and do your own thing and work in your garden. It feels like we're to the point now, simply like acknowledging the elephant in the room is like enough to get you a boot knock at the door. And this is the kind of fear that they instill in you. Well, maybe not you, maybe you don't care, but I care, because I have a YouTube channel and I have the family that I have, and I have a job, and I have a team at my job that I'm responsible for. And they try to scare you so bad that they don't even want you to repeat the things that are happening and that are going to happen again because you've seen it happen. That's how bad they scare you. And so the question is like, same thing with like the Rona and the vax mandates, like, are you ready to lose everything simply to just repeat what's going on? No matter how peaceful you tell everybody to be, and then it feels like you're just being negative, and it feels like you're being a broken record, and I don't know. It's so hard to reconcile. And I think that's like the first thing that I wanted to cover, and I feel like I could just never say it enough that I want cooler heads to prevail, and I want everyone to leave everyone alone. And the reason why I tell people that is because surviving whatever, I always call it like surviving like first contact, like whatever first contact is, like we have to be able to survive it because we don't know what it's going to be and we don't know what it's going to look like. That doesn't mean you can you have to bury your head in the sand. You can still cautiously, pay attention to what's going on and gather information. But you don't interact and don't intercede, and you stay away. Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in the chaos and the anarchy. And it's not fun and games. Like, riots are extremely scary, and a lot of people don't know how to handle the adrenaline. And despite what a lot of research has been, led people to believe, mob violence and groupthink and like the hive mind is like a very real thing. Some people will peace out, but a lot of people like ignore that and kind of override it and stick with the herd because they're afraid to be the odd one out to say, this isn't a good idea, and grab somebody and get out, because then they are afraid that they're going to be targeted by the mob, which is why you just have to stay away from the mobs to begin with. Or you gotta, sneak away very, very carefully if you somehow get caught up in one. And I'd like to talk more about that stuff, but like, I don't know. I just don't know, because it occurred to me, I think the biggest thing that gobsmacked me is that, the internal civil domestic conflict, I think, has taken on a completely different meaning, and I have to keep reminding myself that there's kind of like, let's call it like the uppercase CW and then like the lowercase CW, the domestic conflict, unknown origins. And so this is kind of like the big deviation from the podcast that I am not going to air, is that I think we have been in like a lowercase CW for like, I don't even know, like 2008, 2007, 2008, something like that. We've been like in a lowercase CW. I'd have to remember like Zimmerman and that debacle. I can't remember if that was can't remember exactly which year that was, but around that time is when the kindling was, the match was struck. And some could argue it's before that, but that's vastly different from like an uppercase CW. Like, you've got like the culture war, which is what like the lowercase CW is. We've been in that, since whenever the Trayvon Martin Zimmerman thing happened. I want to say it was like 08, 09. I'm forgetting now because there's been a million things since then. It's been a giant blur. So, but you could argue it was before that with the WTO riots. You could argue it was with the whole top 1% protests. It's been bubbling for a really long time. Anyway, the uppercase CW, I don't actually believe there's going to be an uppercase CW, nor would I suggest that it would benefit anybody. It would be horrible, and I don't want one, and nobody should want one, and nobody should be encouraging an uppercase CW. I don't think one's going to happen. Partially because there's so many lower CW going on that it just keeps everybody distracted because they have to worry about each other. And so I was very confused kind of by the article because I feel like we're going from lowercase CW flying right into World War III at this point. And that was kind of another part of my deleted podcast that I did want to make, was that between Ding Dong McGee, Sleepy Ice Cream Joe giving Z-Bone, permission to use long-range missiles in Ukraine, and then China, surrounding Taiwan for multiple days with nothing happening, we're like stupidly close to WW3 happening. So anyone suggesting that trying to kick off an uppercase CW, I think is either gaslighting or they're up to no good. They're inciting people because they're up to no good for one reason or another. So I think that's just nuts to me. Just remember, people suggesting to do bad things, just stay very far away from them, and just only do good things, and work on your garden and work on building your community. And I want to extend that a little bit because there was another point that I liked that I made, which is no matter who wins the election in November, doesn't really matter. Like, if Orange Man wins somehow, then he buys us 4 more years, so then things are just going to be fast-tracked even worse. If Ice Cream Joe wins, things are just going to get fast-tracked worse now. If he loses so bad in the debates that the DNC, which didn't even allow anyone to debate him, decides to replace him and cackles, then it's going to be somebody else who's going to be controlled opposition. And it's going to be the same thing no matter what. The question is if you're going to, maybe get 4 more years before things decline even more rapidly. But another kind of popular theory that has risen over the last couple days is that Orange Man is probably the people putting him through all the court stuff are going to put him in jail. That's their plan. And then if it happens, just don't get gaslit into doing anything stupid. Right? Like, that's like the theme of everything. Don't get gaslit into doing something stupid. Everyone just stay calm and don't overreact and don't I just can't say that enough times. And so part of the point of that is a lot of people want Orange Man to win because he's gonna, unemploy lots of 3-letter agencies. And their missions, those 3-letter agencies' missions, have unfortunately, deviated outside of their scope in some cases over the years, but that doesn't mean the answer is to just wholesale unemploy them all. And I would argue that you shouldn't anyway, because I think that would single-handedly crash the entire economy. And it would throw the entire country upside down in terms of... I can't even like fathom how bad that would screw our country up, unemploying that many people. And it would be no different than if you unemployed all of the gig, drivers, which in my opinion, which I have no metrics to back this up, but I think gig drivers right now are the only thing that's keeping food on everybody's table and keeping everybody's houses paid for. Giving them a living wage is just going to unemploy them all. And I think it's the same thing with everybody who's living off tips at restaurants. I think making them all have a living minimum wage or whatever is just going to wholesale unemploy them all and just get us even closer to digital currency. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I think it's okay to be for, smaller, limited 3 letters that have, very specific things that they're trying to do and work on that can make everything better, like protecting our borders and protecting us from trains running off the rails and spilling chemicals everywhere. There's lots of good that the 3 letters can do for everybody. And I think the other big point I was going to make is like USPS, the post office, is like a prime example of that. Like, if the economy goes down and FedEx and UPS, which are also both single-handedly keeping a lot of food on the table and a lot of roofs over heads right now, like if everyone stops ordering shit because they'll get laid off, everyone from UPS and FedEx gets laid off, and then it's up to USPS to basically single-handedly keep everything going. So take that as you will with, like, if you're looking for a recession-proof job, but also that's an example of, like, the 3 letters, well, in that case, the 4-letter, they do good work. They're keeping good people employed. Like, it's not perfect, but that doesn't mean you just rip the whole thing down. The damage to the country would be akin to when the riots go through and destroy all the restaurants, or when restaurants were getting closed down and sued because they didn't follow the mandates. Like, all that damage that was done, all the damage to the landlords when nobody had to pay for their rent anymore because of, like, forced lockdowns. The economy never recovered from that, and it's just barely limping along. And so we're not producing enough here anymore in the US to like to climb back out of this. And kind of the case in point there is like EV credits have already expired for this year, so everyone's got to wait till next year for like EV credits. Those aren't made here. I mean, I guess some of them are, but depends. Like data centers, you know, they want to build them on the coasts and use up subsidized power on the coast, and they're not even paying for their own infrastructure, and they try to offset everything with you know, rebates that don't net out for how much the cost increases are. And all that data and processing is getting outsourced, but we're subsidizing the energy for it. Like, we're not making money off that, we're losing money off that. And all that's going to be left of our country, at least on the coasts, is ultra expensive real estate with super high electricity bills from trying to keep EVs going and trying to power these damn data centers at a loss. And it's going to take Intel like 2 more years to make like AI chips worth a damn. And who knows how much electricity those are going to take to run. Somewhere in 2025 is when the new AI chips are coming out. Or was it Nvidia? Intel Nvidia? Whatever. I don't remember. I'm staring out into an inky black night listening to the rain, doing this all from memory, if you're wondering. So that's the future that we have to look forward to. By the way, those data centers aren't creating new jobs. They are keeping existing jobs limping along, and everything from those data centers is made outside the US, shipped here, installed, and then the processing is used outside the US. Otherwise, they wouldn't be needing to build them on the coasts next to the international data trunks. And it's the same thing with freaking EVs. So they've got, you know, EV school buses coming online right now. So what happens when it's too hot or too cold and your kid is stranded at school because the EV bus isn't going to run anymore, or they can't charge the EV bus because the freaking grid's down because it's powering data centers? Not when each data center uses the equivalent of hundreds of residential houses. You can't get enough rebates in residential to offset a data center. And they want to put in tons of them. And they want to put in tons of EV chargers. But they haven't been installing the kind of EV chargers that ramp up and have their own batteries so that they can charge while the grid has surplus power. Right? They want everybody distracted with like stupid stuff. Meanwhile, like, we need to work on getting microgrids and gardening, you know, and making sure that the news people that we like to see aren't taken off the air and with a bag over their head and thrown into a van, or trying to simply say what's going on. So I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. I'm probably forgetting some things, but I still want to say I want a special thank you for Vision Preparedness. He had me on a show a while back. That was absolutely amazing. He's a great YouTuber who's very calm, trying to remind people to get ready. Survival living has been another massive supporter. And again, very calm, cool, collected. Talks about food preps all the time. His last upload was talking about microgrids again. And I've been talking to my friend Glocktard about microgrids a lot. We spent quite a while the other day talking about him again. You know, how do you get enough batteries and enough solar to offset a couple things, knowing full well that it's not really going to save you money, but it does give you really good practice for how much you'd be able to run off grid. And so if I can ever get Glocktard on, my partner in crime, talking about battery and solar stuff, he'll be my first guest if I can ever convince him to get on here. Me and him have been working on battery and solar and off-grid stuff for years. So if you've ever read Bunker Codes, he was the QA, the quality assurance for the battery and solar parts. Otherwise, it was a real convoluted mess before he went through it. So, yeah, I think that's it. I guess if I'm going to leave you with something, it's that if you see a good price for something that you use a lot, get two. The price of everything's going up. So, or non-existent. And I'm still kicking myself for not getting like these 400 plus watt panels, even though I was saying panels are going to be unavailable and I'm a dummy, and I should have financed some, because I would be in way better shape right now if I had financed those panels before they went out. I was telling everybody. And I didn't do it myself. So, I know, Spooky, I know. So, I don't know. What else? It's the same thing everything, like modern defensive tools, like a lot of that stuff's gone now, depending on where you live. And if you didn't get it, it's gone forever, and people didn't listen. It's really frustrating. It's going to be the same thing, you know. How long until you can get, you know, a decent, you know, 4-wheel drive, you know, with like a V8 in it? We're going into weird times right now. Or like, you know, like getting a decent riding lawnmower. Even weird things like my wife and I, we were looking at like different combinations of like 18-volt batteries for Ryobi. This isn't sponsored by Ryobi, but hey, if you're listening, sponsor me. I know. But 2 packs of 18-volt Ryobi batteries are like 3 weeks out. You could buy 1 pack. They had them in singles, but they didn't have 2 packs, and I didn't check to see how far out the 3 packs were. So, and I was talking to my brother about this too. And thankfully, way back when we started our modern battery journey, you know, I started with 18 volt, he started with 40 volt. And then he got a couple of 18 volts also. And then later this year, once I feel like I have enough 18 volts, I'm going to switch over to 40 volt also. But it's really scary to me, like the prospect of like 18 volts, the supply of 18 volt batteries drying up. Because even though they're not crazy powerful, if you're kind of gentle with them, they are pretty versatile. And they go up to like 12 amp hours now. There's like 18 volts that go 1.5, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12. Hi. You okay? And I was talking to Glocktard about that, and he's like, "Don't like. Why would you get 12s? Just switch to 40." And yeah, that's true. But since I'm a battery nerd, I think I would get in like a 2-pack of 8s and like a 2-pack of 12s just to check them out. But honestly, at that point, you are better getting 40s, and that's the point to where I would need those is the point to where I would go to 40 anyway, 40 volt. But I think I kind of want to leave with this, which is there really seems to be a sweet spot at the 18 volts at a 6 amp hour. 4 amp hour. Well, if you have a 1.5, you can drill stuff for like quite a while. If you have like a 4 amp hour, you can chainsaw quite a bit of stuff. If you have a 4 amp hour, you can weed whack for about 15 minutes. But for some reason, and I've been thinking about this a lot because I've been weed whacking a lot. For some reason, I don't know if it's the overhead or what it is, but when you go up to a 6 amp hour, you go from like being able to weed whack for like 15 minutes to being able to weed whack for 6. I don't know how long because I lose track of time. And it's so, I don't know why that is, or if it's that like a watched pot never boils or whatever, but the more you use your batteries, the more you test your stuff, the more you realize like these weird little things. And so it's like, I really don't need to get more than like a 6 amp hour because it's like they might get too hot, you know, even though the 8s and the 12s have like vents in them. I've seen them now. Like it's going to take forever to charge, even if you get the newest speed charger that they offer. It's still going to take forever to charge. So you're going to be leaving it on there overnight. You're going to need 2 fast chargers, or those 12s are going to take all night. You know, like one on each, you know. Whereas like the 4s charge really fast. And even the 6s feel like they take forever. Like I throw the 6s on and go to bed. So I can't even imagine what the 8s and the 12s are like. So those are all things to think about. And I don't know if the 40 volts charge any faster, but they make 40 volt fast chargers too. You gotta test your stuff, right? You've got to. But yeah, they make funny little things, you know, little vacuum cleaners, little leaf blowers, all kinds of stuff that runs on those 18 volts. You really don't need a 40 volt for them. You can use 40 volt for bigger stuff like bigger chainsaws, bigger lawnmowers, things like that. I think the thing that bums me out the most, though, I keep forgetting to say this, is I wish Ryobi would make bigger 40 volts that were LifePo 4. That would make me feel really, really, really good about switching over. I know sooner or later I'm going to be burning through these 4 amp hours and eventually the 6 amp hours. They just won't hold a charge. I know that's quite a ways off, but I mean, as the years go by, if you're not slowly buying new ones and getting prepared to put the old ones to sleep, and if they're not manufacturing something with more longevity, eventually you are going to be in a pickle. So those are things you got to think about. I realized that kind of early on with my Goal Zero my lithium ion Goal Zero. I love that thing to death. It is so light and it is so versatile. But just knowing that eventually it's going to burn out bums me out. It bums me out. It just makes me not want to use it, even though I love it to death. It's so light. Like lithium ion's so light. But Goal Zero's making some really cool, smaller LiFePo4 stuff. So, you know, what do? Do you try to save when you know it's kind of getting about halfway? Do you start saving it? Start planning on the next one? So you can kind of have like a 2 is 1 and 1 is none sort of thing, so you're not just like burning one out in case the shit does hit the fan sooner rather than later. You know, batteries are really versatile, but you got to think about that. And even more importantly, when you're planning on solar microgrid stuff, you got to think about if your MPPT controllers can take in as much as you think they can. And Glocktard's probably waving his arms right now, going, don't forget to tell them you gotta get way, way more solar than you're probably gonna need. And it's true. And the crazy thing to me was learning that I found this YouTube video where the Goal Zero 500X can actually handle, I think, twice as much voltage. Don't quote me on this, and do your own research and stuff. But it could handle like twice as much voltage going into it because the MPPT controller in it is like really, really, really good. Don't bank on that, obviously, but those are the kinds of things that I tried to write about in bunker codes that like you really need to learn about. Like, I've got a port on my Blue Eddy and I don't know what it does, and it says 24 volt, and it's like, the cigarette lighter port. I still don't know what the point of that is. So there's, I still have a lot to learn too, but you've got to test your battery stuff. Test it with all the things you're going to use. If you're going to do off-grid radios, test it with off-grid radios. If you're going to run your Ryobi stuff off-grid, practice with it. If you're on your fridge off-grid, practice with it. If you haven't practiced your solar panels with your battery yet, practice with it. I spent a whole afternoon practicing with my solar in different configurations, only to realize that unless I had direct sun, the inverter was pulling more energy than what my panels could produce. So you might have to double or even triple or even quadruple the amount of solar that you need if you're going to run, a microgrid for your area. Anyway, I'm sure there was other stuff, but thanks again for listening, and take care of yourselves, take care of each other, work on your gardens. If your neighbor's not working on their garden, they're going to see you working on your garden, and it could spur them on to work on their garden. My neighbor's got a pretty nice garden started. And keep encouraging each other, even though we all live like really far away from each other. Just knowing other people are working on things and being positive, I think, helps immensely. I know it helps me immensely, just checking on my buddies and knowing that they're working on things. If you know somebody's working on land and you don't have land, ask them if they need help and see, if exchange, they'll let you cache some things there. And if they're not going to give you the time of day, then move on, Just think about what you can do because things are going to get crazy and we have to just be able to survive, and then figure out what to do afterwards. But don't be the crazy people. Don't overreact and do anything stupid. Just don't get baited, because in the end, this is like almost entirely a giant uniparty. They're all varying degrees of corrupt, and they don't care about you. And a lot of the people that should be voting aren't. And a lot of people that are probably aren't voting for the thing that you want anyway, or they're not paying attention to what they're even voting for, and the votes probably aren't going to go the way that you want. And, I still encourage you to vote and do your own research. However, don't fret and get upset and dwell on it not going the way you want. Just assume it's not going to go the way you want, and then keep working on your gardens and your microgrids and working with your neighbors to be the best neighbors you can be. And if there's the crazy neighbor stomping up and down the street, figure out how you're gonna coexist with your crazy neighbors arguing and fighting all the time, in a healthy, productive way that doesn't get you involved, but means you're not in direct conflict with each other too. You gotta be careful, you gotta be cautious, you have to have a presence, but cooler heads have to prevail. And so we can keep finding ways to come together to get past this small, lowercase CW. Because we don't need to be fighting each other over stupid things. We're all on the same team. So I will talk to you all later, and yeah, take care of each other. Bye-bye.